Tell me the peanut story.
Yeah.
We were meant to get to that.
Yeah. So yeah, for those that don't know, in my presentation to the IMF, I simplified Lightning and explained it to the IMF. It's on YouTube. You should watch it. It's a public video. And I explained to them Lightning with tortilla chips, raisins, and peanuts. And I had referenced this real story that this actually happened in someone's house. And so it's easily probably the craziest 36 hours of my entire career. So the only person, or I don't know, I have to be very careful naming names, but the person I will name is Wences Casares. Are you familiar with Wences?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So Wences now is like a super, super close friend of mine. I have a lot of love for Wences. And actually, he was the only Bitcoiner that I know of that publicly apologized about SegWit2x. So Wences has done more for this industry, and he's done so much for my career already in our short history as friends. And I love that guy so much. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, Jack, I think you're really onto something with your whole vision of Lightning and Bitcoin dematerializing Chase and Citi and stuff. And I want to host a dinner in San Francisco with some big names because I want them to hear this. And the best thing I think I could do is give you the audience to say what you've been saying to the people that need to hear it most. And I said, okay, that sounds good to me. Like I said, I'll sit and explain to anyone, like whether it's a fucking dying grandpa or the IMF or a dinner, I'll do it. So I went to San Francisco and I went, and at this dinner, no names, top executives at Facebook, top executives at Google, Niall Ferguson was there. Capital Group manages $2.5 trillion worth of assets. And yeah, I went with my CBO, and he was like, hey man, you know, this is a different audience than like Out of the Closet. Like, you think you're going to tone it down? And I was like, you know the answer to that. I'm not going to tone it down. And so, yeah, we go in, and it was a big dinner. It was awesome. And again, shout out to Wences. And we just talked about exactly this, the dematerialization, how people need to be interoperable with Lightning, how everyone has something to gain by integrating Lightning, by the way. The only people that don't have anything to gain are those that don't want to compete for the experience, which is Chase. Even if you're Visa, you have something to gain. And I was explaining to Google and Facebook and everything. And someone asked me, this is just like a tangent of the story, but this is a true story. Asked me like, what about DM and Facebook and like Libra and all that they're doing? And I looked around the table and I looked at the Facebook executives and I said, you guys are just doing it wrong. And I said, you're competing with the Federal Reserve. Why are you doing that? You have the right energy and the wrong solution. Effectively, if you think of Facebook as a country, it's the biggest country in the world. There's population of 4 billion. And Zuckerberg's effectively asking to be the central bank of that country and issue them money. No one's going to let him do that. Or by the time he could do it, it's over. It's 10 years from now. So you guys, why are you competing against the Fed? You don't want to compete against the Fed. Why don't you compete against Western Union? You could kill Western Union tomorrow if you integrated the Lightning Network, and remitting money was sending a text on WhatsApp. Dead. If it's about the best experience and the best brand, when I walk into Starbucks, do you think that Facebook can be competitive with all their talent and distribution and existing brand and people checking out at Starbucks with Facebook? You just are missizing up the opportunity, guys. The opportunity is that there's now an internet, but for money, and you already have everything in your power to build one of the best experiences and best brands on it. So stop competing with the Fed. You're wasting your time. All these legacy institutions are dead if you buy into Bitcoin and Lightning. And then a week later, my CBO who was at the dinner was like, dude, look at this. And it was news. Facebook kills DM. And like all these people are leaving. And
sold the technology to Silvergate, right?
I don't know.
I saw that.
I don't know if whatever. Everyone was like, man, you really orange pilled Facebook because they killed DM a week after you told them to. So anyway.
So we're going to get the Lightning Network in the metaverse.
I'm not going to comment on who we're, I'll just tell this. So we're at the dinner and And Capital Group managed $2.5 trillion worth. And I was like, shit, man, like this guy's sitting across from me, $2.5 trillion. And I was like, fuck, I don't know what to say to this guy. Like, so I was like, fuck Western Union, you know what I mean? And he comes up to me and he's like, nudges me. He's like, fuck Western Union, man. He's like, Russell Okung, the GOAT, pay me in Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, yeah, all right. Like, this is my crowd. And so then after the dinner, I get a text that was like, hey, someone at Capital Group really wants to meet you. He's manages the biggest team there. And you got to explain to him the Lightning Network. He has someone that he wants to introduce you to. And trust me, you're going to want to take this. And so this is the next morning. My flight was later that night. And I was like, I got to fly. And they're like, Jack, if there's a meeting you got to take, it's this one. So again, with this dinner, Google, Facebook, all these big wigs there. I sit and say like Bitcoin and Lightning's the only thing. If you're into NFTs or you're into DM, you're fucking wrong. And this is why. And they were like, damn, yeah, okay, good point. You're right. And then the next morning is like, you got to get to this meeting. Like, we totally get it. You orange pilled us. Please show up. I call an Uber. This Uber driver named Lex, who recognized me. And I was like really late. I was like trying to rush, get my shit. I was got to make a flight. And he's like, you Jack from Strike? I was like, yeah. He was like, dude, I was like, dude, I'm so down to do whatever after. But like, you got to get me to this house as fast as possible. This is the biggest meeting of my life, supposedly. And this guy's just like, you know, cutting corners and stuff. He gets me there. He drops me off. And all I knew is that this Capital Group guy is just a bigwig. And so I walk into the house and he throws a beer at me as soon as I walk in. Never met this guy. I didn't even know if he knew my name. I'm dressed in sweats, by the way. If I had something nicer, I would have. I just wasn't packed for it. And I walk in, he throws me a beer and he looks at me. The first thing he says, he goes, let me give you some advice, kid. Making money is awesome. It solves a lot of problems. And I'm sitting in this big house of this guy in a suit and I just didn't say anything. And he's like, do you know what doesn't solve? Renewing your daughter's fucking passport. And I was like, what? And he's like, dude, I've been trying to renew my daughter's passport. We have this trip to Cabo and my wife said she was going to do it. She didn't fucking do it. And like, and I'm just like, should I open this beer? Like, what the fuck is going on? I have no idea where I am. And so he's like, you hungry? You want any snacks? I'm like, no, I'm not really hungry. He's like, well, I am. And he gets tortilla chips with salsa and trail mix. And he's like, all right, let's go to my living room. I heard you're a smart guy. And we go in and he's like, my name is blank. And I manage a team that actively manages about $1 trillion within Capital Group. I've been there probably older than how old you are since you've been alive. Like, I'm 27. He's like, yeah, I'm closer, approaching like 30 some odd years at Capital Group. And so then he's like, all right, so supposedly you're going to like dematerialize payments and shit, or you have this crazy idea, like go, like you got the mic. And I start trying to explain it. And his wife comes from like the stairs and is like, blank, should I cancel dinner? Who's this guest? You didn't tell me you were having guests. Like 45 minutes. And his daughter's like, Daddy, I'm going to dance. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And he's like, yeah, I'll be there. And then he pauses me. He's like, 1 second. The guy who leads payment analysis, it lives down the street. Can I invite him over? And I'm like, yeah, but like supposedly we're cutting on time, dude. Like you can get me fucking killed in this house. And the guy comes over. So I'm sitting next there. There's a couch here. I'm sitting on a couch. There's 2 suits and these snacks. And I'm like, yeah, Lightning and dematerialization and Bitcoin. And I'm looking at him and they're like, this kid's lost it. And so then I pause and I just think to myself for a second. I look at him. I'm like, you guys are thinking I'm crazy, but just trust me on this one. Okay, just follow. And I take the tortilla chips and I just dump them all out on the table. And I take the trail mix and I dump it all out on the table. So God knows, and there's like art on the table. Like God knows how expensive this shit is, right? And I'm like, this is the legacy financial system. And I look at the payments guy. I'm like, you know this, right? And like, this is Visa and this is Chase, right? And this is the consumer making the payment and this is Starbucks. And I was like, and a raisin is dollars, okay? And the consumer wants to send the dollar and the Starbucks wants to receive the dollar, but in the middle are all these legacy tortilla chips. And I poured a shit ton of raisins on them all. Like they got all this rent to pay. Like Western Union, what do you think Western Union's rent is to have like 500 locations in 200 countries? Like they got rent, they got fixed costs, they got balance sheet float. Like how many dollars does Chase have sitting around that's bleeding away and losing to inflation? They got all this muck and shit like that. I'm like, that's how someone buys coffee. Or remit money to El Salvador, right? For the IMF, I did El Salvador. And I bring it down and say, that's legacy, okay? Now, I'm going to put a tortilla chip here. That's me trying to send money to El Salvador. I'm going to put a tortilla chip here. That's the El Salvador recipient. And I picked up a peanut. I was like, this thing, magic. Dude, I'm talking to a guy that manages $1 trillion. I'm fucking peanut in his face. I'm like, this thing's magic. Because let me tell you something. This peanut can get from this tortilla chip to this tortilla chip with nothing in the middle. Fucking at the speed of light. This tortilla chip is like out of a movie, bro. This peanut fucks. This peanut's magic. This peanut does shit that raisins can never do. And they're like, what is this kid talking about? I'm like, this peanut can go from Chicago to El Salvador to Bitcoin Beach instantly for free. But nobody wants to use it because everyone's allergic to peanuts. No one wants to touch the peanuts. And so I took a raisin and I put it on the tortilla chip, and I took a raisin and I put it on the tortilla chip. It's like, what if the tortilla chips, all they did was interface with raisins? That's it. And we just used the peanuts to get rid of all the muck up there. The peanuts, you don't have to love peanuts or like die hard for peanuts or libertarian as fuck for peanuts. Doesn't matter. The peanuts do the job of all the legacy muck, the Chase and Western Union and the Visa that I described up there. So this tortilla chip can pledge to spend $1. It could turn to a peanut, zip anywhere in the world, zip to any merchant, do anything it wants. Magic. Nothing before like it. And then we just turn it back into a raisin and give it to the end tortilla chip. And there's no muck in the middle. And then the winners are whoever provides the best experience for the tortilla chips. And they were like, holy shit. And then he looks at me and he's like, I have to introduce you to Jeff. And I was like, I know that he had wanted to introduce me to someone else or something. And I'm like, Jeff. And he's like, yeah, the one who founded Amazon. And I was like, fuck. And he got his phone out and he texted Bezos right in my face. And he's like, you got to talk to this kid. And that's my story. And now this gentleman actually...
You can't stop there.
No.
Fuck off.
And then actually this gentleman got permission to invest in Strike. And so now we're working with him on some pretty cool shit.